What's up guys, Riley here from RP Productions, and today we're going to go over the differences in the SRT 392 Charger versus the Scat Pack Charger. So over here on the right, we have an SRT 392 Charger. Now this one right here is featured in this beautiful B5 blue color, which looks absolutely fantastic. The sticker price on this car was right about $54,000. It has, some mild options. So 54 grand for this, 46 grand for this. Now keep in mind, they both have the exact same horsepower, torque, same engine, everything. So is that $8,000 price difference worth it for the a few extra minor differences between the cars? Well, let's go find out and see what those differences are. Alright guys, so right off the bat, one of the most noticeable differences is the fact that these Brimbos up here in the front are 6-piston Brimbos, while the Scat Pack features 4-piston Brimbos. Now also, another noticeable difference that you can tell straight off the bat is that these wheels are 9.5 inches wide, while those are only 9. So you have, half an inch to work with the SRT as far as wheel size is concerned, so you can run slightly wider tires. They come with 275 tires from the factory, while the Scat Pack only comes with a laughable 245 width tire, which is definitely not enough for this car. Hell, even the 275s are not enough for this car. Arguably, the biggest difference between these cars is the fact that the SRT 392 features an adaptive suspension setup, meaning you can go through the suspension setups and play with the basically firmness of the ride. You have comfort, you have a normal mode, and then you have a track mode. So depending on your driving style and what you're wanting to drive that day, you can kind of customize it to whatever you want, while the Scat Pack is a fixed suspension setup. Looking at these cars from the back, there's really not too many differences. The only real difference that the eye can see is the fact that the Scat Pack spoiler is a satin black color, while the 392 and Hellcat spoilers are both body colored. So really, when you're looking at these cars from the exterior, they look almost identical. The biggest way to tell the difference is the size of the front calipers, and really that's about it. The hoods are the same, the whole body kit, the bumpers, everything on these cars from the exterior looks almost identical. So you really have to have, a really close eye and really be nitpicky to tell which is which. And both the badges on the sides are both 392 Hemi. Now on the Scat Pack Challengers, they have a B logo that says 6.4 liters. So the Challengers are a little bit different, but today we'll just be comparing the Chargers. Now on to the interior differences between the two cars. Most noticeably, this SRT 392 comes with all leather seats, while the Scat Pack features a suede with leather kind of on the borders of the seats. Now also moving up here to the steering wheel, SRT likes to call this a flat bottom steering wheel, although it's really not that flat of a bottom. It's still kind of rounded. If you look at something like the Camaro steering wheel, that's a flat bottom. But, they call it a flat bottom, but the steering wheel is just a tiny bit different, as compared to the Scat Pack. Another very small difference is you get SRT floor mats in this, while in the Scat Pack you just get some that say Dodge. The font of the gauges in the SRT are more bolded as compared to the Scat Pack, not something to really take note of, but just kind of something different. Also with the SRT, you get a shift light, so when you're really going hard on the car, you will get basically the gauges will kind of turn red to let you know when to shift. The SRT also comes standard with a red push to start button, while the Scat Pack, it's black. But a simple quick little mod, and I have made mine purple. It's basically just a little kind of like a vinyl overlay type thing, and there you go, you can make it whatever color you want. So the largest difference on the interior of the vehicles is the fact that the SRT has more options to go through when it comes to the SRT pages. So as you can see, you have a valet mode here, which basically limits the horsepower of the car if you take it into the valet or anything like that. You have a custom mode. Now the owner of this vehicle has it set up like this, but you can go through here and change all these different parameters of the vehicle, whereas on the Scat Pack, you do not have as many options. So you got that. You have a sport mode, which is pretty much the same as the sport mode in the Scat Pack, but it's also nice, you have a track mode with this car, which most noticeably makes differences to the transmission and the suspension. Now when you go in here to the SRT pages, you will notice that there's an actual SRT that pops up here on the screen, but as far as all the gauges are concerned, really about the same. The G-forces about the same. Pretty much all of this stuff is the exact same setup as a Scat Pack. The only difference is with this whole thing is the fact that you can have a little bit more customizability. I can't talk, but you can change things a little bit more in the SRT. Also, the buttons down here, this one says SRT and launch, and on the Scat Pack, the buttons are just, a slightly different setup. But once again, not really any, big differences. All right guys, so enough looking at them. Let's go ahead and hop in the driver's seat of the SRT and see if a Scat Pack owner can tell any differences while driving. All right guys, so inside the SRT, let's go ahead and take it for a ride and see how it does, see how it compares to my Scat Pack. So right off the bat, first thing I noticed when I got in this car is that the steering wheel, it's a lot thicker. You have a lot, you know, more things to hold on to. I can now kind of understand the flat bottom theory by SRT. It's not exactly flat bottom, but I can see how they could call it that. But just the overall grips and the feeling of the steering wheel, I will say it is a lot better. So that's kind of like the first noticeable difference. In terms of ride quality and stuff, we're gonna start this off by keeping everything in street mode. So the trans will be in street, the suspension's gonna be in street, and I just wanna basically feel how this car does kind of in its most comfortable settings. And we'll just kind of see how comfortable of a daily driver this car could be, see if it's any, you know, different than mine. So just cruising down this road, just kind of, you know, normal speeds, just cruising, you really don't notice as many bumps as you do in the Scat Pack. I will say, you know, it is actually noticeable, which I'm actually impressed by. And that's the cool thing about these cars, is when you go in here and play with the settings, it actually does something. A lot of cars nowadays, you know, you can go through and change the settings and you won't feel a big difference. Like, oh, my car is a sport mode, but sometimes the sport mode on cars just doesn't do something or do anything for the car. So it's nice to get in a car where the buttons do something and actually give you noticeable differences. So, you know, it really is. It drives smooth. I will say it does feel more comfortable than my Scat Pack in the most comfortable settings. So now we're going to bump this up a notch. We're going to put the trans in sport, and we're going to put the suspension as well in sport. So now it's kind of, I guess, what my Scat Pack would be in sport mode. So we're going to see how that compares to the Scat Pack. So sitting here with all the sport mode settings turned on, I will say that the sport mode on the SRT feels just like the Scat Pack does, whoops, just like the Scat Pack does in all of its normal settings. So I would assume, you know, you have an SRT, you put it in your sport mode, that's exactly how the Scat Pack sits in its basic normal settings, which is what I've read a lot online. People say, you know, the comfort mode is a little bit too comfortable, the sport mode is exactly the same as the Scat Pack, and the track mode is really harsh. So we're about to find that out and see how that is. But, you know, just sitting here, I feel like I'm driving my car right now with a different steering wheel. But as far as, you know, the suspension and everything, I feel like I'm sitting in my car. It's almost identical. So now we're going to bump it up a notch. We're going to go track with the trans and track with the suspension. So this is what I'm really anxious to see if there's any difference on. Some people say, you know, track mode shifts super hard here on the SRT, so we're about to find that out, see if it's any noticeable, see if it is noticeable as compared to the Scat Pack. So we'll pull onto this road and see how it does. All right guys, so approaching this corner now with all the settings and basically track. So we're going to take the corner. Handles just fine. I wouldn't say it's much different than the Scat Pack. Another thing I forgot to mention is that the paddle shifters are a little bit different design here on the SRT. They're a little bit nicer. I really don't know why they changed the design, but the design's a little bit different. But in terms of suspension, I feel like it's harsher, but is it much harsher than my Scat Pack or even the normal mode? Just driving on some normal roads, you really don't notice it. I'm sure if I was on a bumpy road, I'd feel like it'd probably be, you know, magnified. But just kind of cruising here, it really is not that bad. You could daily drive this thing in track mode, which some people are like, no, you can't do that. I don't think I would have an issue with it. And then as far as the transmission on track mode goes, well, let's test that out. Second gear pull. Okay. Okay, so track mode with the transmission in track mode, a little bit sharper on the shifts. It's a little bit more harsh, I guess. I don't know if I would say it's a huge difference, but it definitely is there. You do notice it, especially after, you know, getting used to the Scat Pack, so it is there. Is it worth spending the extra $8,000 to buy this car and have it with all these, you know, small differences? That's kind of for the eye of the beholder, you know. If I think the Scat Pack is more of a raw performance muscle car, whereas I think the SRT is more of a, I feel like a lot of people are going to get really butthurt when I say this, but the SRT is more of like a Mercedes AMG kind of. It's more luxurious slightly. The ride's a little bit softer when you have it in comfort mode. I mean, I feel like, you know, if you're an older person, you could take your wife out, you could be sitting here drinking a little wine, looking over the ocean bay in your SRT, and that picture would make a little bit more sense than sitting there in your Scat Pack. I feel like the Scat Pack, it's more of a raw muscle car experience, kind of tailored towards a younger audience. But, you know, the SRT, is it worth $8,000 more? To me, no. I'm biased though. I have a Scat Pack. You know, to the right person, I could see, you know, why somebody would do that. But to me, if I was in the market for, you know, Scat Pack, SRT, Hellcat, or whatever, I personally would either go with the Scat Pack or the Hellcat. To me, the SRT, it does have a place in the market. I mean, I can't get over that the horsepower numbers are the exact same. That to me bothers me. I feel like if they bumped this horsepower up, maybe even 15, maybe just called this one 500 horsepower and called the Scat Pack 485, then maybe, you know, it could be like, oh, well, it's got 15 more horsepower, and give it some kind of marketing to sell more of them. But, you know, this is a problem of why Dodge has been having a hard time actually selling the SRTs, because the Scat Packs are such great deals. So here we go again, one last time, second gear. Yep. You notice that the second to third shift is definitely more firm with the track mode, so that's cool. But I will mention some of these things, like the shift light, the track mode with the transmission and stuff. You can actually get those on a Scat Pack if you buy this thing called a Taser, which I believe is like $300, $400, I don't know. And you basically plug it into your car, and then you can kind of control some of the SRT features. So basically the Scat Packs have the capability, it's just not there from Dodge. It's kind of like you should buy the SRT so you can get this type of, you know, extra thing. But like I mentioned earlier, there should be more extra things with the SRT. I believe like the cars, they're too similar. I mean, hell, from the outside you can't tell a difference other than looking at the size of the brakes and the badge on the very front and rear of the car. But let's say, you know, somebody just ripped those suckers off, people wouldn't tell a difference in the cars. They really wouldn't. And that's why I believe Dodge should have made, you know, some kind of minor or larger differences. Like their differences now are too minor. But it is still really cool to just test drive this car today and give, you know, kind of my impressions on both of them. So I really want to give a huge shout out to the owner of this car for letting me take his baby out for the day and see what it could do and see how it compares. I've really enjoyed this, and you know, before I did this review, I was kind of like anti-SRT, like hell no, don't buy one of those. But after driving it, I'm like, yeah, I could see why you would buy one. Would I buy one? I would personally save my $8,000 and supercharge mine. But you know, to each his own. Everybody can do what they want, but it's cool to, you know, make this video and point out all the differences and finally answer that question I've been asked hundreds of times. So thank you guys for watching this video. I will see you on the next one. Take it easy.